Greetings, Earthlings. Today we're talking about the Atlas 6, Book Talk's favorite new. Well, it's not new, I'm just very late to the party. Today we're talking about the Atlas 6. Now, I know this looks really bad, but the pictures I printed out were too goddamn small, and I'm too lazy to print them out again. But some effort was put into this, okay? This is standing on my hopes and dreams. Just. Mm. This is a book where everyone's bisexual until proven otherwise. And I went into this book expecting the classic dark academia with rich elitist assholes, which it does have, except it's also very gay. It's like if someone wrote a fan fiction of the secret history while ovulating, and I'm here to recap this mess because I have every right to abuse the power of free will. The Atlas 6, a book where everyone wants to have sex with each other and does not know what's going on, and neither do we. We are here solely and purely for the vibes. Alright, okay, so our book has six magic woohoo people, and just in case you forget, don't worry, the book reminds us every 2 pages or so, which didn't get annoying at all. Anyways, the first person we have is Elizabeth Libby Rhodes. Past traumas include a dead older sister, and her magic abilities include manipulating matter and everything around her. She's a physicist, okay? Science. She can like manipulate matter and stuff, or quanta as the book calls it, whatever that means. Then we have Nico, whose last name was too long, I forgot. Past traumas include none so far, but he does have a friend that he protects. We'll get to that later. And his abilities also include science and shit. He's like Libby. They both of them are physicists and they can manipulate matter and you know defy gravity and stuff. Anyways, that brings me to the beginning of a masterpiece. The book starts off with these two graduating from a knockoff Hogwarts called the New York School of Magic something, and these two are highly competitive and tied for the valedictorian position. These two are rivals, and I know that because the book just tells us, despite the constant banter that these two are having. Anyways, for now, all you need to know is that these two are rivals, but in a like a rivals to lovers trope kind of way. I swear to God, every interaction between them two is a blueprint for every generic rivals to lovers. Like every interaction is so unimpressive, it's impressive. But that's okay. I love these two. Next up we have Reina, whose last name I also forgot. Past traumas include a Japanese dad who she'd rather not be in contact with, and that's all we know for now. Her abilities are she's a naturalist. She can like control plants and like talk to them and stuff. Like she can bring life to them, and that's all we know for now. And she hates using her powers. Then we have Kristen Kane. Past traumas include why won't dad love me? It makes me feel useless. Abilities are he can see through illusions and he graduated from a university specializing in illusions, but he is something more, like his powers are something more. And it's not really clarified in the book as much. He doesn't know that, and neither do we. His like entire personality is a self-insert character for me because his only thoughts include everyone is so hot and what is going on, which was precisely what was going through my head while reading this book. Next we have Callum. I should really just stop bothering with last names at this point. Past traumas include I'm the least favorite sibling, my mom doesn't love me. Abilities include he can manipulate emotions and is so unbothered by everything. Like, this dude does not have two shits to give about anything at all. He finds everything boring and uninteresting. He's who I aspire to be and is probably my favorite character in this book. Oh. Then we have the icon that is Parissa. Past traumas include borderline incest and a hateful sister. Elib- abilities Ab- abilities include She's a telepath. No, no, a horny telepath. She uses her powers and sex to get into people's heads and is truly an icon, and probably was the sexual awakening for many women who read this book. In the prologue of this book, we find out that there's a library in Alexandria which has a lot of information, like a lot of hidden secret information that's kept locked away. And every year, well, not every year, I think it was every year, I don't remember. Six initiates are selected, and only five get to take care of this library, archives of sorts. It's basically like that Doctor Strange library, where he stole the book and did the thing with the apple. You get it? Anyways, that's the library, and it's kept locked away. Why? Because knowledge is carnage, and who knows what somebody could do with it? Like what if it fell into the wrong hands? The same old, same old. Anyways, this library falls under an organization called the Society. The Society. An organization called the Society that locks away knowledge and has zero transparency. And the author called it the Society. Huh. If metaphorical subtlety was a plague, the author would be the sole survivor. Anyways, as I said, the book starts off with Libby and Nico arguing yet again. Also, Libby has a boyfriend called Ezra, and Nico doesn't like him very much. Whatever. And his personality is so bland, I thought I was eating the diet of a white gym influencer. Anyways, their little banter of middle school insults is interrupted by Atlas Barkley, who is the current caretaker of the library. And he tells these two that he has an offer they can't refuse and asks them to meet him later. Now, the dialogue between Nico and Libby. I get what the author was going for, but it feels so unnatural. Like it feels like dialogue and not actual conversation human beings have. They refer to each other by their last names, but they do it in every sentence to the point where they don't feel like words anymore. Verona, Nico de Verona, or however you pronounce it, that's his last name. That's not too long. Why did I forget that? Anyways, we see this Atlas person meeting, the other six initiates the same way and offering them an offer they can't refuse. Callum asks about other initiates and finds them kind of boring. Tristan can see through an illusion Atlas had on for like the other initiates, and then Atlas tells him that his powers are very rare, but he says that they are so useless because he can just see things for the way they are. And then Atlas is like, "Oh, you're special, but you can find out." Anyways, all of them meet at a place where Parisa is already present. Now, her and Atlas have this telepathic mind talk thing, and she also joins them. Now, Atlas is there with his companion Dalton Ellery, and she reads all of their minds, and we find out the things we already knew about these characters from the previous chapters again, but from her perspective. Now, this was especially irritating because we already know what she's in the middle of discovering right now. The first 100 pages of this book is just introductions and whatnot. So, what is the point of having us tell the personalities of these characters again, like we didn't just read it? I hate it when books do this. It's so repetitive and it feels so overwritten and just drags on forever. I swear, if the book started from Teresa's perspective about all these characters, it would have been so much more interesting because the characters in this book are so well written. It would have been interesting to see what she thinks about all of them, and then we move on. And I don't think we needed an inch by inch introduction about each of these characters. The book could have started from her perspective on this same chapter, and it would not have made a difference. Anyways, Atlas tells them about the library and that all six of them have been chosen to protect this library of magical woohoo archives, and he tells them that they'll live together and they can research their abilities and stuff or whatever they want, but only five will be chosen to protect the Alexandrian library at some point, and all of them eventually say yes. Also, during this, Perissa tries to look into the mind of Dalton Ellery, Atlas's companion, and she finds out that he's trying very hard to like keep her out, but she's confident he'll cave in later. Also, I could have sworn her name was Paris, and I realized that it wasn't while I was reading it, and I was almost at the end. I I referred to her as Paris throughout the book in my head and was surprised to find out that it was Parisa. I'm just a moron. Anyways, all of them say yes, some because they want to prove they're powerful, some out of sheer curiosity. Libby says yes because she wants to prove that she's better than Nico and also look into the disease that killed her sister. Tristan says yes so he can look into his abilities and stuff. Yeah, because he thinks they're quite useless. Anyways, Nico says yes and has the most interesting reason of them all because he says yes. But I've said yes way too many times right now. I need to get it out of my system. Anyways, yeah, he agrees because he wants to look into his best friend Gideon Drake, the one he's protecting. Now, Gideon isn't exactly a human being, he's just more of a being. He's like if Dream wasn't emo, he's that character from Rise of the Guardians that dies. He's my Dobby, he didn't deserve to die. That death will haunt me forever. Anyways, Gideon can travel through dreams and consciousness and stuff, and he wants to look into that and stuff. So, the reason he needs protection, by the way, is because of his mother, who is basically the mother from Tangled, but somehow even worse. She left him in the woods when he was a baby, and then when he grew up, she, used him to travel through consciousness and dreams and steal things from people and do other horrible things. Because what is a fantasy book without garbage parents? The lack of parental love in this book is astounding. So Nico put on wards around Gideon, there some kind of protection thing, so his mother can't reach him. There is so much information in this book, I forgot how exhausting it was to read fantasy esque fiction. Anyways, he does this to protect Sandman and almost died doing this. So, yeah, basically, to protect him, he's like, I'm gonna go and protect this random library. Also, because Libby does it too. These two are very in love with each other, by the way. Now, all of them are supposed to be living in this magic woohoo Doctor Strange library, and none of them particularly like each other. Callum, for one, hates Libby because she's anxious and jittery all the time, and he finds it very irritating. Which, man, I feel a little bit targeted. You're my favorite character in this book. Why would you do that to me? Anyways, Parissa, for the time being, seems to be interested in Dalton, and so that she could get information out of his head, and she tries to seduce him and stuff. And Tristan, they go out for a drink and do adult wrestling, if you will. They're asked to keep their jobs a secret, so Libby lies to her bland ass boyfriend, and Nico lies to Gideon saying that he's going somewhere important and that he needs to go. The conversation they have is very sweet, and Gideon managed to be my second favorite character in this book. He's adorable. I love him. Fast forwarding a little bit, Parissa, Callum, and Tristan all seem to hang out together a bit more naturally because they're older than these three. And these three are like,
That's
that's
suspicious.
suspicious, that's weird. All of them also sit together and talk about their abilities, or at least try to, because all of them end up fighting and are like, we're competing, this information can be used against each other, and blah blah blah. So they talk and get nowhere. Then my favorite instance in the book happens because it was so cool to read. One random ass night, they get attacked by a group of people, probably the CIA, and Nico sends them coming because he can like feel the vibrations on the ground, and he gets shot. Well, kind of, at least. And everyone comes to, check on him and are like, what's going on? And he says that there are so many people, everybody needs to split up. And we finally see the gang in action, and it is very good. So we've got Nico and Reina, we've got Libby and Tristan, and then we've got Parissa and Callum. These are the pairs they kind of split into. And Nico uses his powers in this scene, and it is so cool. He like takes out an entire army of people with guns and stuff. He uses matter and quanta, and he manipulates it, and he just kind of takes them out. She helps him, by the way. How, we'll get to that later. He also manipulates gravity in his favor and just kills people. He's also enjoying this process, by the way. He feels very energetic and he feels very powerful and just randomly killing these people. It was very cool. Yeah, it's so cool in the book. I'm just horrible at describing it. But he takes out this entire army of people and is just kind of like, you know, macho man. This scene also made me realize that if a random man came up to me and asked me to protect a secret library, I would also say yes, for the shits and giggles. Anyways, moving our focus to Tristan and Libby. Now, Libby causes an explosion, to which Tristan is like, how are you missing point blank? And then she's like, bitch, there's a lot of people here. What are you talking about? And then he does something which rarely happens in the book. He thinks and is like, how many people do you see? And she's like, a lot of them. But there aren't a lot of them. It's an illusion, and she can't see through it. He can. So he basically uses her like a gun and points her in the right direction, and they kill people. One of them escapes, I think. Yeah, one of them escaped. Now, with these two, we don't exactly know what happened with these two. All we know is that Callum did something very weird and it kind of terrified Parisa. She's kind of scared of him now. Like, she's genuinely disturbed. We don't know what happened yet. Anyways, they meet up with Atlas and Dalton, who basically fucked off from this fight, and the gang is like, was this a test? To which they respond with, it's not a test, but it's also not a test. You know, it sounds like every therapy session I've had, so whatever. Anyways, Parissa tries to tell Tristan what happened with Callum, but she thinks that Callum is influencing Tristan with his powers, so she just leaves. And then Tristan is terrified from Nico because he can see the chirpiness in his voice and his face and is kind of like, what the fuck? How did this man enjoy doing that? And how did he also take out an entire army with a bullet wound in his dominant hand? Pure badassery here, let me tell you. Larissa is still trying to get information from Dalton, like she's still seducing him, and Dalton resists for as long as he can. Also, Dalton's an animator, he can bring inanimate objects to life. He caves in eventually, and we know he's hiding something because he's always like, you need to find allies, they'll destroy you, you need to live. Anyways, whatever. During an interaction with him, we actually find out what happened with these two. So Callum caused a person to shoot themselves during the attack, and that's what scared Parissa because she thinks he's psychotic, because that's what he causes people to do to themselves. And she's like, you're inhuman, you're psychotic, like that's what she's scared of. But in a humble and mild defense, what else was he supposed to do, girl? Like you're being attacked. It's not like he's going around every day driving people to shoot themselves. But whatever, queen. Like, what else was he supposed to do? Back to Dalton and Parissa, they have a weird and an interesting relationship. At first, it seemed like she was just using him for information, but it looks like they developed actual feelings for each other. It's sweet sometimes until she looks into his head and finds out that they'll have to kill one person and is like, huh? Now, aren't these characters supposed to be very smart and clever and stuff? Like, you didn't know that, you didn't figure it out. It's so obvious. Like, what do you think was gonna happen in this secret library that no one knows? That you're gonna have a competition of some weird mental gymnastics? Like, of course you'll have to kill someone. It is so obvious. It's not a plot twist. You figure it out before them. You know it's gonna happen from just the summary of the book. At the back it says six go in but five survive or something like that. Like, It's so obvious. They're supposed to be clever, except Tristan, of course. Except Tristan. They're all supposed to be very clever and smart, and none of them have figured it out. Like, dog, make it make sense, man. Like, how? I absolutely hate it when books do this. Like, they tell us the characters are so clever and smart, except Tristan, of course. Always except Tristan. And they're all clever and smart, but in actuality, they're just dumb as rocks. Anyways, Parisa is like, you killed someone during initiation, didn't you? And he's like, yup. Now, on to the research. Nico and Libby have somehow found a way to create wormholes, and Callum is highly unimpressed by this because he sees no point in teleporting objects from one place to another. He's so constantly unimpressed by everything in this book. Like, there is no land where his fucks grow. He's just constantly bored and unimpressed by everything. Also, Nico tells Libby that Reyna might be an energy source because during the attack, when she touched him, she felt really powerful and took out an entire army. These three, I mean, not these three as of yet, but these two kind of form an alliance of sorts. Now, on to my boy Tristan here. He asks Libby what she feels or what she sees when she uses her magic, and he's like, I see things a little differently and stuff. He borrows a book from her, then fucks off. He also has a little crush on her. The book doesn't do shit, so he explains to Libby that he can see things some other people can't. For example, heat. He can visually see heat, right? So Libby does some weird mental brain gymnastics and is like, if you can see time as quanta, as the book calls it, then technically you could be able to control it and warp it. Right? So Tristan notices a rhythm in time and he makes Libby feel those rhythms, and she can sense those vibrations and she stops them. So, in layman terms, they stop time for a few seconds. Really cool, right? Like, it's so cool you can stop time and stuff. Except Tristan, he doesn't really care much at all. See, man, this is why your dad calls you useless. He has such a fucked up sense of priorities. What are you trying to do, man? You just found out you could possibly stop time. And he's like, okay. Now, Peressa, while digging deeper into Dalton's head, finds out that technically during his initiation, everybody wanted to kill Dalton, but just before she can find out more, Atlas pulls her out of his head. Real shady, man. Real shady. Also, right now, these three people are aware that they'll need to kill someone. And Callum is obviously like, haha, let's kill Livy. He hates her so much. During the book, at some point, he's also like, she has so much power, yet she's so desperate to please people all the time. Someone should take that power from her and put it to better use. He's joking, obviously, mostly. Anyways, these three are unaware right now, but these three know. All of these people get visits from someone they don't know, and these people are like, the society should not hide information, it should be public, it's greedy, join our cause, what they're doing is wrong, blah blah blah. And they tell them something personal about themselves to them. Was that grammatically correct? I don't know. Anyways, they tell Libby that her sister might have been saved if the knowledge that they're hiding was public right now. But she doesn't tell them anything or join their cause because Libby thinks that the society is testing them. For a society I don't know much about, I wouldn't just blindly hand them my faith. But whatever works for you, Queen. Like, I wouldn't be there. Anyways, Libby goes back to the Magic Woohoo library place they live in and finds Parisa and Tristan chilling by the fireplace, drinking, vibing. And basically, Parisa becomes a catalyst into all these three people um, doing adult arts and crafts, if you will. Caught me a bit off guard, but whatever floats your boat, I'm not judging. Tristan finally ends up asking Callum if he's influencing him or not, to which his response is yes, no, maybe so. In this interaction, it was the first time I felt bad for Callum because he tells Tristan that he feels immensely, he feels all the time, and as a kid, he could tell. and he could feel that his mother didn't love him as much as his other siblings. So he ended up manipulating her into loving him more, but it still felt hollow because he knew that it was his doing and not genuine love from his mother. It's sad, you know. It's That's that me depresso. Later in the book, Parissa finally confronts Callum and calls him a psychopath because she's like, you know, you made some person shoot themselves in the head. And Callum is like, don't you do the same thing? You look into people's heads and then use them to your advantage. And then Parissa is like, I'm not you, I don't do that. And then Callum's like, you hate me because you are me. You know, the reverse psychology thing. Later, they have this weird mind game in which Dalton's the referee for some reason. Anyways, they try to look into each other's heads, and they do this in Nico's head. In layman's terms, these two are playing chess, and Nico's head is the board. And in this game, if I'm being honest, Callum hands her ass to her in a silver platter because, oh shit. Like, we find out about Parissa's past, how she has a brother and a sister, and the brother is very obsessed with her. And Parissa looked into his mind and found out all of the vile thoughts, and her sister hates her because of her beauty. He also found out that Parissa used her beauty to her advantage when she was underage and stuff. It's all very traumatic. Also, she has a husband for some reason. Like, that was random. Anyway, he makes her feel bad about her past. He makes her depressed, basically manipulates her emotions, the thing he does. And then he makes her jump off a balcony. And Nico's head, of course, not really. And he wins. Like, fast forwarding a little bit, Libby finds out that they'll have to kill someone and is enraged. She goes to Atlas to talk to about this killing thing, and he does nothing. Basically, he's like, it's tradition, it happens all the time. I mean, every time there's an initiation, and she's like, oh, what the fuck? Also, we find out that during Dalton's time of initiation, he convinced all the other people to not kill him and kill someone else instead, and all of them were like, okay, yep, sounds good. That's basically what happens. Now, all of them are scheming against each other. No one trusts each other. They're back to square one, basically. Also, I forgot to mention Gideon's mother pays Nico little visits, and she finds out that he put wards around her son, and she's like, take them down, and he's like, no. Also, Gideon didn't know that he had wards around himself, and when he does find it out, he puts the wards down. You fucking idiot. Gideon pays Nico a little visit in his consciousness and is like, you have your own problems, stop trying to take mine. To which Nico is like, I'm rich, I have no problems, let me take yours, let me help you. It was a sweet interaction. You know, it was kind of like a love confession. I shipped them a little bit. Okay, now the finale. Everyone's kind of yelling at each other about who they want to kill, or even if they want to kill someone or not, because it seems kind of inhuman to do so. And while they're fighting, they hear a scream, and then they go and check it out, and they find the body of, drum roll please, Libby Rhodes. No, that's not Libby, that's Libby. Yeah, Libby Rhodes. Poof. Dead. Nico is very disturbed by this. He's also really angry because he was kind of obsessed with her. Even Parissa was like, oh, she was sweet, now she dead. And Callum is like, dog, I did not kill her. Just saying. Anyways, all of them are confused as to who killed her, and that's when Stupid Boy comes in clutch. He's like, that's not Libby, it's an illusion. He sees that the proportions of the body aren't quite right. Also, he was obsessed with Libby too after the fireplace incident. Like, she's helping him research his powers because he can, potentially control time. But he's always like, what is going on? How do I know how electrons work? Did she break up with her boyfriend? She did, by the way. She did break up with her boyfriend. She broke up with Ezra. After this, Nico is like, yup, I know exactly what place Libby occupies in the universe, and she's not dead. Like, he would have noticed if she was dead. He asks all of the others to help him find her, and then they're like, why? And he's like, because I say so. And they're like, yep, okay. Not in these exact words, but this is basically what happens. So now you may ask, what happened to Rhodes? Well, she got kidnapped. By who? Ezra, her bland ass boyfriend. Why? Well, do you remember when Dalton was an initiate? Well, so was Ezra at that time. And Atlas and Ezra didn't agree with the society and how they dealt with things, so they wanted to destroy the society. So Ezra, who has the ability to shift through time, traveled to a time when Atlas was ready, only to find out that the six initiates that Atlas had were the ones he needed to cause the Big Bang. Like in his plan to destroy the society, he would end up ending the world. So he kidnaps Libby so he can prevent that from happening. Random magic go brr and the book ends. Oof, man, I need a break after that. Man, the ending of this book was such a letdown. I mean, you put such a strong emphasis on knowledge as a whole and the carnage it causes. You could have had Atlas use this knowledge and cause civil wars leading to a dystopian society where people kill each other all the time. It could have been so much more interesting. But you went with the generic ending the world bullshit. I mean, come on, man. Also, the characters in this book are so well written. It is a breath of fresh air. Like, they're so well written, and the dynamics they could have had from the situations that they were put in could have been so interesting, but the book focuses on the endless amounts of subplots it has. There is so much information in this book, it's hard to keep a track of. Like every page you flip through, every page you read is like a whiplash. There are so many subplots and like so many random info dumps, like it didn't need any of them at all. It's a little overwritten, and the overwritten part isn't even interesting. Like it could have been so good. It's just it's kind of disappointing, especially for the characters. I really like these characters. The dynamics between them could have been so fun to read about. It could have been genuinely one of the best interactions these characters could have had with each other, but it was a letdown. Overall, it was a mid book, I'd say. Like, it wasn't earth shattering or groundbreaking as Book Talk or Bookstagram described it to be. I went in with high hopes and it was just mid. I also hated the fact that almost the first 100 pages of the book is just introduction into these characters, only to end up with her finding out about these characters and then, checking their personalities and stuff. That's where the book could have started from, and it would have been so much more interesting. Like, it's a little disappointing. Overall, it was mid. I'll probably read the other two parts it has, which I forgot about actually. I mean, I knew that this book had two parts. It's just while reading this book, I just erased that idea from my head. I was like, this is a standalone. It has to be a standalone. I just convinced myself because it was a little disappointing from what I was expecting it to be. And then when I finished the book, I was like, oh, that's not a standalone. It has two more parts. I'll probably read the other two. As I said, man, it was disappointing. I really wanted to like this book. I wanted to love this book, and I love the characters, but the book is just eh. Like it's not. It's mid. I mean. Anyways, sayonara, bitches, and I'll see you in the next one.